G'day, Aaron here, Rustic Traders, showing off a bike that I got just in the last week. And what we have here is another Hoffy, not to be confused with Huffy, which is an American brand. This is a Hoffy, which I have done a video on a Hoffy before, at least once I'm sure. That they were made in Sandgate in Brisbane, a suburb of Brisbane on the north side. So the history is that in 1928, a William or a Bill Hoffman started the bike shop over in Sandgate. And so Hoffman, he called it Hoffy. So they made all their own bikes, made there in the shop, imported metals, bought lugs, and they fabricated these bikes all by themselves. So this one here, I imagine, is a bit of a later one, probably, you know, I would think 50s, maybe early 60s era, but probably somewhere in the 50s. Your usual 28-inch wheels on these old roadsters. Now, it's not a track bike or anything. This is a roadster or a utility bicycle made for your sort of everyday usage. Now, this particular bike, my mate found it on Roadside Collection over in Brighton. So very close to where the shop was in Sandgate. And yeah, someone had wheeled it out to the Roadside Collection for just throw out. So he got it, knew I would want it, so I bought it off him. Its condition isn't great, but you can see the original Hoffy branding here, H-O-F-F-Y. You've got the original pinstriping and paint job on there. The Hoffman logo there. These are later. Someone's put what would have come off a dragster stem and dragster high-rise bars, or ape hangers, as a lot of people know, because hanging onto them you look like an ape hanging from a tree, was the whole ape hangers they called them. Someone's put the dynamo light on there, little dynamo here, which we've talked about before, a little generator alternator that spun, created electricity. If you ever used them, if they were set up right, they worked good. If they were set up too hard against the tire, you know, you had to pedal harder to make the thing work. I had one as a kid and I honestly didn't like it. Going down a hill, yep, you know, you got heaps of light, but flatland or going up a hill, the light kind of went bright, dim, as you put in the hard pedals. So there's one on the back as well. The wires have since come apart, but you know, I leave that on there for ornament's sake. It does have decent cranks on it. We've got Williams cranks, which are very good brand of cranks. You notice the chainring is removable, so that's what leads me to think it's probably in the 50s and not later, because for speed of production later on, they did away with them being manufactured to be removed. They were just pressed on there. Nice pedals. They look like BSA pedals. They could be BSA pedals. It's hard to see a logo on there at the moment, but also they could just be a BSA copy type of pedal. The rims, they're not a Westwood rim. You know, they're a rim with a brake wall and still got the original paint on there. So Hoffy's a very famous brand. I think in 1942, Hoffman took on an apprentice by the name of Eric Hendren. And Eric Hendren, sadly, Hoffman passed away in the shop one day. The story is that he said to Hendren, okay, you go off for lunch. Hendren turned around, started walking towards the front of the shop, heard a thump. He turned around and Hoffman had a heart attack and dropped to the floor dead. But he had left the shop to Hendren. So a lot of your later Hoffys were Hoffman, but then they started having Hendren on them. So they might have the Hoffy shop sticker, but they were started being branded as Hendren. And you know the proper Hoffys, they have actual Hoffy stamped. The ones that Hendren made, he stamped Hoffy underneath the bottom bracket. So that was kind of later. You know, you had gears and stuff like that with the Hendrens. These earlier ones made by Hoffman were single speeds. And I think in 1979, he took on Llewellyn McCulloch, who, as an apprentice, builder in the shop, frame builder, and he went on to have his own brand, Llewellyn. So he's very famous as well. So a lot of famous history there with Hoffy. Cool bike, found on the side of the road, you know, just thrown out as rubbish. So super happy to get it. And probably even if I pump these tires up, it'll hold air, and there's no reason the bike isn't just rideable exactly how it is. So cool find, hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned.